Now, like we said, welcome relief for those who are worried about their health, but this will also have effects on the economy, and we'd like to understand those effects at this point. I have with me William Odhiambo, who's the managing consultant at LM Consulting. Thanks for joining us. What does this mean for KQ? Stock price, we understand, is down at the moment. They also have loans. They've just gotten some new planes. What does this mean for Kenya Airways?
Well, thank you. It spells doom. It's not been a very good 2-year session for Kenya Airways. They had an undersubscribed rights issue. The share price has been falling from as early as 2012. They reported a loss the other day. So this is just a series of unfortunate events. And I think that's why they were hesitating initially to cancel their flights to West Africa, because they are looking at stabilizing themselves again financially, and also, strengthening their base, so to speak, after acquiring those jets. Yeah. But,
you know, what sort of magnitude of business are we talking about? West Africa is obviously a very lucrative route for Kenya Airways.
Absolutely. Kenya Airways delivers about 100 billion in any given year in terms of turnover. And a majority of this is driven by the Western African market, and of course their connectivity to the East and Europe. But we're looking at a loss of about 3 to 4 billion per day after this cancellation. And the worst part is we do not know for how long this will continue, because it's a health problem, and you cannot say that health problem will go for a week or 2 weeks. So it becomes very difficult to quantify the real loss, but every single day that this is going to happen is going to be a loss to Kenya Airways.
What about the economy, the Kenyan economy in general? KQ is a big player in the industry. Well,
like I've mentioned, 100 billion on an economy like Kenyan is not small money. It's about 0.03% of our GDP. It creates employment. There's a lot of multiplier effect, just courtesy of Kenya Airways. It is in the class of Safaricom and East African breweries in terms of the delivery to the economy. And so, just this decision will affect their results, which will in turn affect the economy. But it's also important to note that they are a very, very major player in us getting foreign exchange, because most of these payments are paid in US dollars. And so when this is affected and the dollar is already at 87, 88, we're looking at very, very, very dire consequences on the economy.
Now, how will the West African players take this? Obviously, for them, we're now telling them you cannot come to this country. And like you mentioned, JKI is a transit point for a lot of those traveling from West Africa to other parts of the world. How do you think they're likely to take this news?
Well, it's most unfortunate, really. And they also have their own share of economic problems occasioned by the Ebola crisis. But beyond that, I don't think they'll take it kindly. Because really they have their own airlines, they have their own airports, they would have used that. They have favored Kenya Airways in the past, and at their time of need we have left them unattended. And so it's a very precarious position to be for Kenya Airways. I don't think they'll take it kindly, but in the long run, if this is well managed over a short period of time, I think that's a relationship that we can always go back to.
So what options would the travelers have? They're not allowed into the country. KQ is not flying into their countries or, into those regions. What alternatives do the travelers have? Like you mentioned, they have other airlines, but they choose KQ. But, what would it be like for them?
Well, this is the point where you wish that the mobile telephony guys had a way in which you could send yourself into a country.
I'm
sorry, I'm kidding. But seriously, they have very few options. They might travel by road, but then you will have to be smuggled, because really
even the road, yeah, we're not allowing people in even by road.
Absolutely. And so the options are few, and the business that we are conducting, the intra-African business that's going on between just East Africa and West Africa is not small money that you can ignore, and it creates a lot of employment. And so it's a very unfortunate place to be.
How important is it for us to, make sure that we get this Ebola crisis under control, because it is very clear it's a matter of health and wealth, as many would put it. But, you know, when you take a look at a disease such as this that is causing the deaths of now people getting into the 1,000 mark, you know, the toll, how important is it to get this under control quickly enough?
Well, of course, there has been pressure across the country that this is very risky. I mean, it's very risky for us to allow flights into the country. As a matter of record, I don't think, I supported the decision by KQ early in the week, that we can still fly into West Africa as long as we manage that properly. Because really, we live in a small village called planet Earth today. So it's very difficult to say that no one from West Africa will enter Kenya as it is right now. They'll probably come in through Europe or South Africa or any other avenue, and that's still a risk. Or even if it's a Kenyan who's gone to Sierra Leone or who's gone to Nigeria, how are you going to block them from coming back to their country?
Essentially, they could end up being stuck there.
Absolutely. Or worse still, if they make it to the country, or probably they already did, and they came with the virus, you're looking at a major crisis. So on one hand, indeed, we agree with the government that there is need for us to be protected against the epidemic. On the other hand, it is hard, to say the least, to just block the country totally from this. So the drugs that they've been testing and using, I think that's the best way to go.
The death toll is high. The toll on the economy is high, because these governments in West Africa are also spending colossal amounts of money on, you know, just keeping the people safe. Of course, the hospitals, bringing in doctors. Paint for us that picture of what the Ebola crisis itself is, how it's affecting economies, not just of the West African nations, of East Africa. Many people may not have made the connection in the beginning. We focus on the health, but the health is also affecting the economy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I like probably just to take us back a little. When the heads of state from Africa went to the US-Africa summit, it's one of the key things that President Obama identified as a problem in the country and in the continent, and offered aid towards. But we do not need aid per se for this, because really the effect on the economy is major. And we are not the only country that are saying that we don't want West Africans to come. And so ordinarily, when as a country you're blocked from trading, that simply means you're bleeding money, you're bleeding a lot. But beyond that, it also means that the sources of help that could have come, for example, from CDC, how are they going to come into the country? Or from World Health Organization, how are they going to come into the country? And so I sympathize with this country, with these countries that are affected. I sympathize with the continent, because the whole world is looking at us funny. Korean Air the other day was saying that they want to stop their flights to Kenya because we are at risk.
Point, yes.
So it's a very precarious position to be. Way forward would be just let us consider investing heavily in getting the right drugs for these.
Indeed, and managing this situation and bringing it under control.
Absolutely.
Like you say, thank you so much for painting that picture for us, the economics of the Ebola virus and how it's affecting us right here.
Thank you.